Hello, Miss Beth.
Hello.
How are you?
I am great. I'm so excited to be here today. This
I am
is
thrilled you are here. I'm thrilled you're here. So we're going to give it a couple minutes. I say a couple. I always like to do a little bit just because it takes sometimes people time to get on and all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I want to be able to see who's here, where they're from, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm watching it on my phone as well, so I can kind of keep track of all the comments and stuff. Oh, I always like to do a little bit just because. There we go. Oh, we have all these great people. Okay. Okay, so it's showing up on my phone. It's not showing up on the feed here. So that's okay. That's okay. So Beth, now remind me where you are. What state?
I am in Illinois.
Okay.
I'm in a suburb of Chicago in Naperville. A lot of people know where Naperville is. So, yes,
Oh, yes.
I am just outside of Chicago. I live in Naperville and been here for quite some time. But I
That
was
is
born
awesome.
originally in Nebraska, so I have
Oh, that's
a lot of neighbors or a lot of relatives that are out, in the West area wearing cowboy
exactly.
boots and hats. So
Our son and daughter-in-law, Alan and Susan, moved to Chicago. Hendersonville? No, I can't. That's terrible. I had a brain warp. I can't think of it. Hello, Mr. David. David is from Texas as well. So when everyone comes on, if you please tell us who you are. Obviously, we know who you are. We see your name, but tell us where you're from. So that would be great. So whether you're watching this live or recorded, I'm Debbie Saviano. Beth Buffington, thank you so much for joining us. And I'm so thrilled that everyone is coming, that we're going to have a chance to talk to Beth today and learn a little bit more about what she does and the different things that she's involved with. Because I think what she's going to share are some really cool things that'll help other people who might be artisans and creatives. So I can spend time talking to Beth, telling you her bio, telling you her background, et cetera. But I'd rather spend the time listening to Beth, talking about the things we have, and let her share her story and her journey and give some insights into some things that she's done, because that way it'll be helpful to the people that are on the feed. So I encourage you to look at Beth's LinkedIn profile, connect with her. I encourage you to give her some love, some hearts, some checks, some kudos when she's visiting with us, and also ask questions. This is interactive. I want you to take an advantage of Beth's expertise and what she's done, and because she's got all kinds of cool stories. So Beth and I met at Art
mhm.
Biz Jam. I think it's been 3 years ago, I think.
Yes. Philadelphia, right? It was
Philadelphia.
2019.
I
Yep.
was there speaking on LinkedIn. No surprise
Mhm.
there. I was so pleased because Joe Packham she was asked to speak. She couldn't. And so Joe recommended me. And I was there to be able to speak to the group and met some wonderful people, Beth included. And thanks to technology and social media, we've all stayed in touch.
Yeah, we
And
have.
so I'd reached out to Beth if she'd come on and talk, because I watched Beth. Uh, she'll tell what she does, but she's done some incredible things, and it kind of gives an insight into what people can do and what the possibilities are. So were you always an artist, a creative? How did you get started? Did your parents view you as that? Was it something in the family? Tell us about how you got from there to here, just in our artistic field, if you would.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I have always been creative. I'm the only left-handed person in my family, and I don't remember not drawing. We would go to church on Sundays, and my dad would bring these little booklets that he made. They were about that big, and they were made out of that old computer paper that used to have the little
Oh
punch
yeah.
out.
So
He
yeah.
would trim them down and he would make little booklets, and I would make up stories. He was an engineer and he always had a pocket protector that had flare pens in it. So I had red and green and black and brown. I think those were the four big ones he always had. And I would make up stories and draw pictures during church. And my mom also had bought us, my brother and I, this little card table. And I remember drawing on that card table so early, things for Halloween, things for Christmas, things for Easter, and cutting them out then and having my mom put them up on the window to decorate for the holidays.
Aw.
I don't remember any time where I wasn't busy thinking about like what can I make next. So yeah.
And
And
your dad and your parents were supportive of that. That's important, I think.
they were very supportive of it. And then, when I was in school, it was before computers. So anytime anyone had anything to publicize, you needed to make posters. I was that person making posters, and I also was the artist for the yearbook. So always busy doing something that had to do with art.
That is so, so cool. I think people like myself, I'll say myself, and I know other people too, because some people reached out and asked me about this. I think people who aren't as creative or don't think they are as creative, they struggle sometimes when they see people who do create beautiful and meaningful art. And they're maybe fearful as far as how to do that. And I know you teach college classes and you have students. Talk about what you teach. And hello, Miss Alexis. So glad you're here. Talk about your students and what you teach and that whole process. I think that's important.
Yeah, so I teach upper level digital illustration at the college level. And when my students come to me, they've been introduced to computers and how to do art on their computer. So we are looking at these creatives on their way to doing whatever it is they might be doing as far as profession. Some are going into graphic design, some are going to be doing UX, some are doing illustration, looking to be illustrators, but working digitally.
Right.
So I set up my class to do more than just talk to them about do we all know how to use the blob tool in Illustrator? We are learning how to become more confident about who we are as creatives. I think that's sometimes the tool that most creatives find weakest when they get out of school is like, just how do I know I'm going to measure up, and how do I get out there and show my work, and how do I get my first job, and then how do I interact once I get there? So we talk a lot about communicating with clients and making sure that you're building yourself up as an artist when you're doing presentations or when you're getting your work ready, how you're sharing your work, how you're finding your work. I think having that bit of courage and confidence as an illustrator, as an artist, as a creative is important to have. So we talk about that a lot in my class.
So let me ask a question. So it makes me think about because of computers and technology, and we always have our phones, right? Do
Mhm.
you encourage your students or anyone who might have classes or whatever? Do you encourage your students to always have something that they do create, their mini portfolio, their digital portfolio with them at all times, in case someone should say, "Well, let me see what you do"? I mean, do you encourage that, or is that
Well, I don't actually even have to encourage that because it is
good?
something that the school does as a whole. There, uh, we we ask the students at the end of every class that they've done to take their strongest projects and put it up on Behance. And so
Oh, good.
they start an online portfolio really early on, and that is it is something I do encourage that they get that ready, that they know what's on there and they're ready to share. I also let them know that they need to think about the work they're creating and try to be balanced so that, like, if they're really into gaming, that all of their artwork isn't just about gaming. Or if they're into animals, all their work isn't just about animals, that they balance that out, because quite often as a professional creative, you don't get to work in a field that might be your passion subject, right? I worked as a new artist at an engineering company that just developed HVAC systems for large buildings. Had nothing to do with anything I would have liked to have drawn, but it was where I went, and it was a creative position. So
Right.
you need to be able to talk to a wide variety of people, subjects, topics. So I always kind of tell everyone, if you just did a project on barbecue sauce, maybe the next one you're going to do is going to be for a baby's nursery. To really show people that you've
Well, that's
got
a great idea.
some ways to stretch your creativity, to look at areas that might not be about who you are as an individual. And so I had one guy in my class, big kind of athletic man, who did a project about baby nurseries, and it was awesome to see him just really stretch that creativity.
That's
And
a,
I see David's ask
yeah.
about daily sketchbooks, and yeah, I'm really a big fan of what are you doing every day that is creative, whether you are actually putting a pencil to paper or sketching digitally, or maybe even just looking at other people's artwork to get more inspiration, some more ideas. It's something to do daily that is just going to keep you stirred up.
So now, so thank you for sharing that, because that's cool, because you see people at different places with their sketchbooks and their
Mhm.
journals and their colored pencils, or sometimes just pencil or whatever. So now you design beautiful art. You're so creative, and if anyone can see your website, they'll know what we're talking about with that, and I'll share that. But what about, do you have any art that you enjoy that's not what you create?
So when you asked me about this, and I had some time to think about it, and I didn't have to think very long. Um, I was my daughters live about 40 minutes from me, one in
Okay.
this direction, one in that direction, and both of my routes to houses involve crossing railroad tracks. And twice a month, I get stuck by a very long, slow train. And I have found that I get some of my greatest artistic pleasure for the week sitting and looking at the art that is on the railroad cars. I am fascinated by the talent I see on those cars. And when I'm sitting there thinking, I'm imagining these artists as they are working on their art. They're not somewhere where they are safe and content and have a lot of hours to maybe sketch something out and change their mind on it. I mean, it's probably dark, and they probably are looking over their shoulder the whole time they're doing their art. And yet the work that comes out of those creative fingers is insanely beautiful. The colors and the topics and just the subjects they're talking about. Some of them are really deep, and then some of them are just super playful, and some you're like, oh my, look at that.
Well, it's interesting because I love street art. I love graffiti. I love all that, and it's kind of it's owning a place now finally. And a lot of, unfortunately, in some cities and some urban areas, some of that's gang stuff. But
Mhm.
to your point, much of it is just creative juices flowing that they don't even have the resources that other people have. And our daughter-in-law taught Susan in California, and in her school, they had started a course for kids who did that, and these were
Mm.
at-risk students, and it was so cool because the artwork they created was incredible. I want to say one of them got a scholarship based on, I want to say that for sure, but I remember her being so impressed that the school took upon themselves to recognize that those students had the talents. And I think it was a school in California. I might be, because she's taught in 3 different states. But anyway,
Mm.
the point is they do have talent. And, Banksy, my gosh, I mean, Banksy started out on the streets, and now he's, at Sotheby's selling his artwork and doing
Yeah.
crazy things. But I love street art. I love it when you see it on the side of buildings. Phil and I were in downtown Fort Worth last week for a conference, America First Policy Institute. And Fort Worth is still the stockyards, and different buildings had on the buildings pictures of what it was. Like the fire station had a picture of the fire station back in the early 1900s. The next one they just had different pictures, but it was the history in the art. It was so cool. It was so different.
Mhm.
Now, speaking of that, now y'all, please, if you have questions, please ask Beth. You can ask them, we'll pop them on the screen. But some say artists, some say creatives.
Mhm.
What do you say, and why?
So when I am working with my students, and I teach at the college level, and I also teach online with my own online courses, I usually say creative. And the reason for that is I am encouraging people who are thinking to themselves, "Well, I can't draw. I'm not an artist." And so I don't want to discourage anyone. So, but when you say creative, I think people are more willing to go, yeah, I actually do think I might be creative. So it's bringing those people to me so I can talk to them about what they might be capable of producing. And for my students that I work with online through my courses, through my Procreate course, I think, if you can pick up a pencil and you can draw some sort of thing that looks like it could be a circle, you can come and draw, and you can be creative and Procreate. And I think that the word creativity, it doesn't just define someone who is painting or drawing on paper or canvas. I think of my husband. he's an engineer, and he works at a company that designs valves, and it's super technical, and in my world, a little boring, but oh my gosh, do we need valves in our world.
Absolutely. Everything needs valves.
Mhm. And so, but he's one of the most creative people I know, and he likes to ride bikes. He loves road bikes, and so he's constantly buying old bikes and then rebuilding them, and
Oh,
he's
cool.
painting them, and he's finding things that are wrong with it, and fixing and rearranging and redesigning. And when he's done, he's got these amazing creations that looked like just a pile of junk that he's now created into something that people are going to be happy to take out and ride, all over the place. So creativity is something that lights you up in here. That
Mhm.
is something then that you put into fruition in some way that changes things for the better. That's
That's
the
so cool because I think when people hear the word artist, they immediately step back. And unfortunately, coming from the background of education, I think it's better today, much better. But I think in the early days, don't color outside the lines, color it this way, use this color. And so people became a barrier thinking, oh, I'm not creative. And I
Mhm.
hope and pray that that has changed in education. And I do think it has because I think teachers realize that it comes in different forms. Hello, Miss Lucy and Miss Jessica. Jessica says she loves Procreate. Now, I know a little bit about Procreate. Tell the group here give us an overview, just kind of a brief overview what Procreate is.
So Procreate is a drawing app for your iPad. It works specifically on Apple iPad and works best with Apple Pencil. It is an app that you can download for $12.99. And it is as powerful a drawing program as Illustrator and Photoshop. I currently do all of my artwork in Procreate because it is so portable, and it allows me to experiment with all different kinds of mediums. I can do something in charcoal or chalk. I can do gouache or watercolor, oils. I can do spray paints, any sort of pen or pencil or art supply. If I don't have it in my brush library, I can go find it and import it into my iPad and begin to work with whatever art supply that might be that I need. And so I love to teach people how they can use their iPads and go and draw wherever they feel inspired. I had an airline flight home from California a while back, and I drew mandalas all the way home on my iPad. And we had a lot of turbulence, but it was just a way to kind of keep things calm and grounded. I also like to draw on my patio, light up the fire pit, and you can even draw in the evenings because your iPad's backlit. So
Right.
it's super portable. I can take it when I go visit my family. I can have it in the car. If I have just a few minutes, I can take it with me while I'm waiting for someone. You don't have to spread out a bunch of art supplies and then clean up when you're done. You just open up your iPad, you draw, and then you close it up and off you go.
I love what Patty said here. I always understood artists are trained and taught disciplines, and creatives are intuitive and imaginations. And I think what Beth is saying, it can be even today a combination. This just made me think about when you said this, Beth. People are some people are fearful and worried about AI. Now, I worry about AI because I do think some of that's a strong possibility. However, I love AI. I use it all the time. I'm experimenting with stuff every day. But the fact that you can have a spray paint, watercolors, oils, anything you want, pencil, and it's on your iPad is
Mhm.
just genius. I mean, oh my gosh. First of all, who would probably ever do, well, a lot of people might not do spray paint, but they do it on Procreate.
Mhm.
I love
Yeah,
that. That's so cool.
yeah. The artwork you can create there is it's endless. It is what I love to teach is to anyone who is like tech timid. Maybe you are someone that is drawing on paper, and you've been doing beautiful work traditionally, but would love to learn how to do Procreate, and you're wondering, can I come into this application, and will I be able to draw at the level that I'm able to draw traditionally? Can I do that on Procreate? Or am I going to be like that toddler that has just picked up crayons for the first time? Will that be me inside my iPad? And the answer is you can find your art inside Procreate. And all you need to do is get in there and muck around with it and have someone show you, what is what, where do you find the things, how do you do the techniques. So in my class, we just walk through in 8 modules. We have lessons in each module. Each module concentrates on a different part of Procreate, and we just learn how to go in and get familiar and fluent with what is happening inside your iPad. And then the most important thing is like, okay, now you've got all this artwork inside your iPad. How do you get it out of your iPad and into the world so that you can share your art with clients, with friends, decorate your home? So we learned then how to import or export your work out of the iPad and get it onto like POD sites. So you can do things like this is
Oh, good. I was hoping you would share. Good.
this is a cutting board that I did of one of my wildflower mandalas, and this is
And that was all done on the iPad.
This was also done on the iPad. This is one of the lessons inside my course. It's just how to work and do mandalas like this. So I've done that.
Very briefly tell, in case someone doesn't know what a mandala is, very briefly explain that.
So a mandala it's typically circular, so like this, and it is it's been around forever. It is a basis in like Hindu and
Hindu and Indian culture for sure. Yeah.
And it was a way to concentrate and prepare one's mind for meditation. I also find that meditation is a great way to learn how to pray better if you're a Protestant. It keeps you grounded, it keeps you focused. And so the mandalas that I make, some of them are very abstract. This one is easier to see if I show you. This is the case to my laptop. Let's see, there you go. So this one is just purely abstract. So it was just my mind wandering, just making up shapes and playing with colors and textures. And then this one was actually drawn from some flowers that I took pictures of out in the forest preserve near my house. And then I came in and stylized these thistles, and then I brought it into in Procreate and made this mandala.
And that's that's an example of the technology. You can make the art. And when Beth and I met at Art Biz Jam, and again, I am so social. I love social. I'm one of those secret wannabe creatives, if you will. I'm creative in a lot of different things, but not in the paint stuff, but in a lot of other things. I should show the hat that I had featured in a creative magazine that I made one time. But anyway, where was I going with this? Some shiny object I was talking about. Oh.
Yeah.
But the fact that technology now allows you to take your art and put it on products. I mean, I've got mugs from many friends who are artisans that they have designed mugs for me and they put their artwork on it. Mm-hmm. It's so cool, but you couldn't do that before. I mean, there's programs you can order that from. So I put the website up there, but we will put it back in the comments when we get off, and Beth will put a couple pictures of her things there in a link to her course, because it's so cool because you walk people through. Now, one of the things I love, many things I love about you, Beth, but one of the things on your website, and David mentioned this earlier, I love the banner and the imagery that you share, and you talk about celebrating ordinary life. I think that is so beautiful. Talk about that, because I just think that's so special.
Well, life, we endure life every single day. And
thank you, Lord.
Right? Life, nothing is guaranteed in our lives. And I think that we spend a lot of our lives just moving around on autopilot, How did we how did we get to work? I mean, did I stop at all the lights? I don't really remember. Did I, you go to the same places, you shop at the same places, you run the same errands, and our lives look very cyclical, right? So when I'm developing products, I like to think that I'm going to help my customer find a moment in their day when they can get quiet and concentrate on something that brings them joy. And the best way, I think that if we had to stop and find the things that bring us our greatest joy, that we'll find that it's not that weekend in Disney World, and it wasn't,
Mhm.
climbing to the top of that giant mountain. I mean, those are all really great events and memories. But maybe the thing that you had the most joy with was family dinners, or finding time to get around the fire pit in the evening and share stories and make s'mores. And those little things that aren't a big deal are usually the things that bring us amazing joy, and that we probably find ourselves inwardly the most quiet and content. And if you think about it, being content is probably when you are feeling your happiest. So I like to think that my products are helping people do that. So I always suggest that, okay, tonight for dinner, um, go get the good dishes out of your china cabinet. Go get that china that you registered for, that you are always saving for those special occasions. When was the last time you had a special occasion where you actually used them? On your deathbed, will you look back and think, I used my dishes 5 times? I think there's a lot of people that are thinking, I don't remember the last time I used my
Yeah.
china.
Yeah.
Why not? Isn't it beautiful? Don't you want to eat off of it? Go get it out tonight and use it. And then light some candles for dinner tonight. I mean, we all have candles around our house, but how many of us are like, yeah, I don't want to waste it. We'll save it.
I'm going to save it for what?
And so it's all the things we save because we think we need to wait until we have a reason to celebrate. And in my world, today is what you need to do. I have 3 businesses that are wrapped around the word today. I have design today, celebrate today, and create today. And it helps me remember that I need to be mindful of what the goodness that I have right now, today, with the people I have around me. So reaching out to someone that I need to talk to, making sure that I understand that having dinner with my husband is one of the highlights of my day. So what can I do just to make that a little more special? And sometimes it is getting out a pretty plate. When my girls were little, we used to have color dinners where we would have like orange dinner on blue plates, and
Oh,
everything
how
would be
cute.
orange, and everything would be served in blue bowls or blue plates with blue glasses. And we would
I
have like
love that.
cream cheese and peaches and carrots, and we'd find all things orange. And that was our special dinner. And it just kind of took you out of the ordinary, like it's just another dinner, and it brought in something, a little facet of that moment that made you stop and think, what is special right now? Let's celebrate today, right?
That is so cool. That is
Yeah.
so cool. So now, but I want to thank you for sharing that because I bet your girls have beautiful memories. I want to go back to something on the Mandelas because I think that, uh, and I'm a Christian. That's a beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur. You can say what your faith is, whatever that might be. But as Christians, some Christians are most Eastern religions are all into meditation. I mean, almost every culture is, except for us as a religion, if you will. But I
Mhm.
think sometimes they get confused. And I love what you said about the Mandelas. It gives you the time to pray better. And so I think instead of thinking of that as some out of the world experience, it truly is finding yourself and having time to. So thank you for sharing that because I think that's really
Yeah.
important. You and I met 3 years ago, as we said, and I think that all of us have had, oh my gosh, the last 3 years with COVID, so much has changed in our world and our lives, and some for the better, some for the better. But a lot of things pushed us back and had us reevaluate things. Now, you had to spend a lot of time in your studio, which is beautiful, by the way. Um, how did COVID change you in that whole time that you took off and being able to have more time in your studio for retrospect and your business, et cetera? Talk about that a little bit. Because I think sometimes people have things they can do that they don't always think about doing.
Yeah. Such a good question. And in 2020, my creative life did a little, little Y in my tree, right? So I was busy with some creative projects. I had several licensing projects that I was working on. That is something that you do so intimately with yourself. You're just like in your art, creating your art, getting your art ready. And then also in January 2020 was when I started teaching. And that was getting me out of my studio onto campus, meeting students and learning how to take what I have up here about how I do my art, why I do my art, um, and getting it out to explain and process and teach. So that was a whole thing I was developing brand new January 2020. So of course, middle of March 2020 is when we all went back to our houses and shut all our doors and we were just inside. So the part of me that was creative was like, okay, this is what I always do. I'm always in my studio and I have stuff to do. But I also had my class I was teaching, and that really turned me upside down because not only was I learning to be a teacher for the first time, but I was also trying to figure out now, how was I going to teach art when I couldn't be there to demonstrate art? And that was really scary. So,
I want to just point out what Patty said here, because that is so true. And I agree with you 100%. Christians do meditate, Patty. But your point, God gave you an opportunity to step back in your studio and you were going to teach. So then you had to learn how to do it. But then it took you to a different step, a different
it did.
place.
It did, and this is something about being creative that I talk about a lot to my students, and that is, um, if you're going to be creative and you want to stay ignited with your creativity, you need to find places where you are uncomfortable, where you are pushing past your normal boundaries and you're experimenting with something that maybe you didn't think you'd ever do or you didn't think you could do. And then you explore that. And sometimes you fall flat on your face and then you get up again. And then sometimes you find out you have a strength there that you didn't know existed. And it becomes a whole new area where you're just on fire. So that's what happened to me in 2020. I was teaching, was just learning how to do all the things on campus, like hook my computer up to the
You were a student in a way. Again, you yourself were.
I totally was. I was just learning how to get my computer hooked up so that my screen would show up on the overhead projector, up on the screen. And I was just getting used to how I used the key card and where I needed to park and how I opened up things and just what we needed to do on campus to make classes work. And then we had to go home. And then I had to learn how to use the software that the school was encouraging us to use to be online to teach. And then how do you teach art online when you aren't there face to face? So all of that had to be figured out. So that entire first semester I was teaching, it was just a white knuckle, crazy ride. And God bless all the students that I had that semester. I hope at the end of the day, they learned some things from me.
I have no doubt. I have no doubt. I have no doubt.
So then during the summer, we found out we were still going to be online for the fall campus. And that's when I said, okay, we got to get organized here. And that's when I learned how to screen capture. It's when I learned how to make videos. It's learned how to edit videos, how to prepare my lectures for video presentation. And what I discovered was that it was the better way for me to teach my students because I not only had a lecture that was me, visually showing them what they needed to do for their projects, but learning a program is more than just listening to someone say, here's how you do step A through Z. Okay, on your own, people, see you later, bye. They really need to have someone that they can go back into and double check and rewatch and go and familiarize themselves with areas where they were stuck or couldn't remember what happened during the lecture.
Oh, Beth Scott, you're froze. Beth froze there a minute.
Am I here?
There, you're back now. You're
Oh
better.
no,
It's kind of, yeah, I know.
what is happening?
The fear of all of us is, it's better. What college do you teach
And
at?
oh, I teach at College of DuPage. It's a junior college in just outside of. It's about 40 minutes from my house.
Okay. Okay. Oh, I hope we're
And
better
so,
there. Okay.
am I up and active again?
You're active. It's a little teeny blurry, but we'll pray that,
Okay, that it'll get better. Yes.
yeah.
Okay. So anyway, I had students that were coming up to me saying, when we're done with semester, can I still have access to your videos? I really enjoyed them. They're really helpful. I'd like to be able to watch them again later on when I have trouble with whatever.
Yeah.
And that made me decide that, hey, I actually enjoy teaching. This is something that I would like to do more of. And it then made me think, you know what I would like to do? I would like to teach more on my own. And that's when I decided that Procreate was something that I wanted to share with more creatives, because it was something that had changed my creative professional life. And that was something I think more people needed to know about.
It's so fascinating how sometimes we're forced into things. I use the analogy all the time during COVID. The restaurants who weren't online, didn't have the digital assets set up, and many of them aren't in business today. Most of them were mom and pops. But when COVID first hit, a lot of educators, because I know a lot of them, they were just thinking, okay, we got 1 or 2 months and we'll get through this. But to your point, by summer, it's like, oh my God. And like my daughter-in-law, it was 2 years, it was almost 2 years. I mean, it was
Mhm.
ridiculous. And so such a gift you gave, Beth, for teaching the technology to them. And I love what you said about, you realize. So when I started doing LinkedIn, when I started doing social media, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I just knew I had to know it. Spent 2.5 years learning LinkedIn, et cetera, et cetera. One day a person reaches out to me and says, can you do for me what you've done for you? And I went, oh
Mhm.
my gosh, there's a business here. People need
Yeah.
LinkedIn profiles. So to your point, sometimes we don't stop and think. So to Patty's point and a couple others here, if you take the time just to be quiet and to think about that, what is it that you do that you could take to a different level? Maybe it's using technology, maybe it's not using technology, whatever. But I just think that's genius, because a lot of times people don't, we're so busy running, we don't always take the time to think about what we can do. I love you just did one of your newsletters I just saw. We were talking about how you miss Mother's Day, uh,
Mhm.
and how you don't miss Mother's Day anymore because of the technology and that. What are some tips you can give people to think in terms of technology if they're creatives? If they're creatives, obviously your course, and we'll put that in the feed. What other things do you encourage your students to do, or whatever, when it comes to technology?
I think that one of the things I'm always talking about is research. Look into what you're doing, understand what you're doing, and I always give them the example of I did an illustration for Smithsonian Magazine many years ago, and when I was doing it, I needed to do this illustration of this woman had bought an old church building, and she was going to remodel it so it could become her home. And so she was getting ready to do all this remodeling, but she went on this long vacation. And while she was gone, what she didn't realize was that um, uh, several homeless people had decided that this was a really great place for them to go in and take a bath, because there was water running in there and they were able to get inside. And so when she came home, she realized that there was this line of people waiting to go in and take a bath in her house. So she wrote a story about this, and so my job was, it took place like, I think it was down in Texas or Oklahoma, and so they wanted to have a like southwestern flavor to it. They wanted to have a girl that was like taking a bubble bath. And so I drew this picture of a girl in a bubble bath with a cowboy hat on and cowboy boots. And I needed to draw a bathtub. And I wanted to do one of those old fashioned claw,
All tips.
and in my head, I can draw a lot of things. So a lot of things just pop out of my head. And then there's some things I cannot draw unless I have research. So inspiration is so important. So I tell my students, you're lucky. I had to go to the library and find books on clawfoot bathtubs in order for me to get ideas about bathtubs. But now I can go to the internet and research bathtubs, and I can do an entire Pinterest board on different kinds of bathtubs. And it makes life so much easier, right? So knowing that you can not only do research, but you have ways of organizing your research online, and you have ways of following other artists that you find inspiring, it is easier for you to go in and find the art that you're interested in and learn more about the art that you want to do, and become just more intelligent about how then to develop your interest in art.
Exactly. Patty has a good point here on the technology. It always has had pros and cons. My brother-in-law is a very successful musician. He's played with Tim McGraw, Dolly Parton, you name it, everyone. Well, when a few years back, when the technology came out and they could do the soundboards, and all of a sudden he's like, well, they're not going to need musicians anymore. No, that's not what happened. Tom now works out of his studio at home in California and works on all these albums across the country, well, the globe for that matter, from his home studio. So what he worried about never really took place. So sometimes we are fearful of things that may not be the case as far as how that can turn out. So I love the story about the church. Hello, Miss Jody. Jody's doing some cool things with metal art. Oh my gosh. When this is all through, I would encourage everyone to please put their website and here, their link, whatever. If you have something you want people to see, Beth would enjoy looking at your stuff as well. So please take time to do that, because it'd be very advantageous, to say the least. That's it. I think that's the beauty of what I love about social media and technology, if you will, is that you can share so much. I did a LinkedIn post on this last week. There's a, trying to think, it was an app, I can't remember, but anyway, it's called Retrato, Retrato, and you can go in, you put your headshot, and then it'll give you like 5 different images. You can choose, like, one's vampire, which is a very sexy woman. One is like a flower child, which is probably more appropriate. But anyway, it gave 5 pictures of me. It cost me $4.99. It was the coolest thing. I loved it because I wanted to be the vampire lady. She looks so cool. But that's a fun thing just to play with sometimes. It was fun for $5. It's a cup of coffee at Starbucks, if you will. But the AI, the DALL-E, the chat, I mean, taking time to learn that and explore it, I think sometimes, to Patty's point, takes away some of the fear too, because there's so many things you can do with that you didn't think about. I mean, it's not taking away from anyone else. It's, I encourage people who paint or draw to even take what they did and put it in some of that stuff and get 4 and 5 different images to see how other people see stuff.
It is interesting to explore that. And I think that we should look into it, and then remember that it is not us. It is just another research tool.
Right.
And what what I know is, like, I just saw an interview with Bill Gates yesterday, and he was saying, all the good guys need to be able to use it, because the bad guys are not going to put it on pause thinking, oh, it's
exactly
something that should not be used. So if we want to stay and know how to use it for good, we need to look into those areas and figure out what will serve us,
right,
but how to preserve ourselves as well.
There'll always be the bad guys. I mean, they say when they print a new currency, a new dollar, whatever you want to call it, a new bill, that the counterfeiters literally that day start working on how to counterfeit. So it's always going to be there. We just have to figure out, to your point. So you talked about the Procreate course. Please make sure, and I put it on the screen earlier, but please make sure you put that in the feed when everyone's done. I do want to ask you about, because I love this. You briefly touched on it earlier, but not everyone here would know what that was. You like to share, you do revive, realize, refine, and release. Just talk about those 4 categories, because you do it with your students, you do it in your classes, etc.
Right. Well, as I've mentioned earlier, that I think that almost every creative I know struggles in some way with confidence and feeling good about the art they're doing, and or struggles with getting ideas and coming up with the next great thing that they're going to work on. And so what I did was I took a look at what I was doing as a creative, and what I needed to do for myself to stay healthy and motivated and working, and then getting my work, moving out to whoever it needed to go to. And I broke it down into a creative process that I call going forwards with your creativity. And so when I say forwards, it's a play on words. It's going forwards words with your creativity. And those 4 words are revive, realize, refine, and release. And when we use these aren't silos that are like, do this, then do this, then do this. They're more like adding cream to coffee and then stirring and watching all of that blend together. If you are paying attention to these 4 steps inside the journey that you're making as a creative, either with a certain project or maybe even with goals that you're working towards with your creative career, you can sort of stop and self-diagnose where you need to be, what you might be having trouble with if you're aware of these 4 words. So just really quickly, revive is the first word that I bring up, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's a reviving. If you are stuck, if you just finished a really big job and you're exhausted, if there's something in your life that is pulling your focus, revive is a space that you need to embrace. And that is just looking at yourself and figuring out, what do I need to feel healthier, to feel more grounded, to feel more inspired? And quite often that is some sort of rest. It could be a good night's sleep. It could be a nap. It could be eating better. It could be sometimes a rest is moving, getting out for a walk or exercising. And those have nothing to do with creativity. I mean, everyone should be doing those things. But as creatives, I think sometimes we forget that if we don't take care of all of this, that none of this will work, right? So revive is just resting and getting that creative energy back to full potential. So that can be a day, it could be an afternoon, it could be an hour, it could be 15 minutes, whatever it is you need to revive. Then the next step is realize. And that is us getting ourselves out of autopilot where we aren't paying attention to what we're doing. And we are moving in just practice measure to do whatever it is we do next. And I am so guilty with this because I love a routine. I like to know that I do this and then I do this, and I like to know when I'm having my coffee in the morning, and I like to know, all of the things that make me just feel kind of warm and cozy. It deals with routine, but the danger of a routine is that you stop paying attention to the world around you because you know what's coming next. You don't really need to pay attention. So like if you're driving to the grocery store, I bet everyone has the route they take. Strangely enough, I have a route that I take to go to the grocery store, but on the way home, it's not the route I bring home. And there's something about me that says, no, this way is shorter. But when I go there, that way is shorter. I don't understand it, but it's how I do it. So when you're in the realize phase, you're almost putting on those rose-colored glasses that are going to help you see with your artist eyes. And sometimes that is taking a day to go and find inspiration wherever it might be. Like, do you need to go to the park or to a farmer's market? Or, if you're developing products like I sometimes do, I will literally go shopping and take myself to the stores that will be selling the products I'm trying to develop. And then I go there knowing that that's what I'm going to look for. So I can find those things that are going to inspire me. So I'm realizing the world around me in a different way because I know I'm in that phase of my going forwards with my creativity. Then the next phase is refine. And this is a big phase because it's like where you're actually doing the work. So you're taking all the things that you have realized, all those ideas you've collected and organized, and you're choosing what you're going to work on next, and then you're getting the work done. And a lot of times we find that, maybe I should empty the dishwasher, or I'm going to, my dog needs to walk now. And a lot of excuses, like I'm going to clean a closet, or I'm rearranging papers, or, I've always wanted to alphabetize this bookshelf. We'll find reasons not to get our work done. And if we know that that is a phase we need to be in, I need to be refining right now, and you can be mindful of it, you can then be a little bit more disciplined about the focus you need to have in that particular space. So in that area, we do talk a little bit more about how to make decisions on what to work on next, because that can be really hard. And then how to stay focused while you're working and actually getting that work accomplished. And then in the last
This
phase,
is an important one.
this one is super important. This last phase is release. And in my class, when I teach the going forwards process, I actually have this beautiful photo of these hot air balloons that are just flying into the sky. And hot air balloons, if they're tethered to the ground, they cannot get in the air. So if your work is something that you're always thinking, it's not quite ready yet. I have a few more things I need to do on it. Details aren't completely perfect. Or I would show this to this client, but they're probably not going to look for these things until the fall. Or I can't show this until I make a better presentation. Or I was going to give this to someone for a birthday present, but maybe I'll give it to him for Christmas instead. You're pushing off that work. This is the spot where you put down your tools and you say, work is done, work is completed, and now I'm going to do the things that this work was made for. And if there's anything that a creative is responsible for, it's getting your work out into the world so that we can make our world a better place. And that can't happen if all of your work is sitting in your studio or sitting in your iPad or in your sketchbook, and you're afraid to show it to people. So getting it out there, there's someone out there that needs your work. And if you don't finish and release it, they are going to not get it. And that is something special creatives have is a way to help other people with struggles they're having, or inspiration that they need, or communication that they have to have to a loved one or to a family member. Your work is so important. And if you don't get it out there, your responsibility as a creative is being overlooked. So
absolutely. Yeah. Amen. I would encourage everyone on this call today, this live today, or who's watching the recording, put a picture of what you do up on LinkedIn. I mean, obviously I'm biased. I use LinkedIn all the time, but as to Beth's point, people want to see what you do. Because everything you do, someone else can learn from. Mm-hmm. And so take just a moment and share one of those pictures you took with your camera, share one of those art designs you made, or whatever it is you do in your signage or whatever, to share something so the rest of us can enjoy, because you never know who's looking for you. You never know who's looking for you.
Never know.
One last question. So when you and I met, I also met Patricia Brubaker, and I believe it reminded me, we were talking about the mandalas and the flowers out when you took a walk in the forest. You have something special coming up soon with Patricia. I want you to talk about that for a second.
I do. So I have a retreat that I'm going to be doing at Patricia's Bed and Breakfast. She has she does artist retreats that she calls Artists Rising. And I have a retreat I'm going to be doing with her June 11 through 15. And we are going to do mandalas. We're going to actually be doing this mandala art. And I'm super excited about it because you don't have to have any skill in Procreate at all in order to come out and work at your way through this project and end up with something amazing. So we're going to actually walk our way through my going forwards with creativity, and we're going to be taking pictures of flowers and sketching flowers and stylizing them, and then I'm going to teach you how you can bring that into Procreate and actually make a flower mandala with Procreate and Apple Pencil. So you don't have to know exactly how to do this. All you have to do is kind of like a flower and come with an open mind, and you are going to be amazed at what you can do. So yeah, Pat has beautiful ground.
Just beautiful place.
That's amazing. So pretty along the Connecticut River Valley. And she's got gorgeous gardens, and you get amazing food and beautiful lodging. And I know that if you are a creative who doesn't know a lot of other creative people, going on creative retreats like this is so beneficial for you, because you're going to meet your people there, and you'll be able to make some friends that you probably will keep in touch with for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. It's interesting because when you and I met at Art Biz Jam, and this was not my world. It was not my world. Hadn't been for Joe Packham recommending me, and Phyllis and Lori hired me to come in and do it, I wouldn't have been there. I still am connected to the majority of y'all that I met there. So 200 people later, I'm still connected with. And so to your point, Beth, it's such a huge opportunity. And Art Biz Jam, Beth, you want to tell them about the date? And I'll put that on the comments so I go back in after, because Art Biz Jam is incredible. Seriously.
If you are creative that is thinking, I would like to do something professional with my artwork, and it doesn't have to be full time, it can be as a side hustle, or maybe you're not even sure, but you're interested in learning a little bit more about it. Art Biz Jam is your jam. And it is this year, October 1st through the 5th. And it is going to be near Kansas City there's a home decor company called Demdeco, and they are going to be doing a lot of speaking and hosting. And I believe we're going to be out at their headquarters, and we'll be learning a lot about what is art licensing, but other ways you can also sell your art, or have a career that's interested in art or being creative.
And no matter what your art is, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what your art is. If you are creative, this is Demdeco. You might not know the company, but probably any gift product you bought in a store comes from them. I mean, you've got their stuff in your house, I promise you.
Yeah. And Demdeco works with a lot of different artists. They have one artist that just does art with pebbles and rocks. And they have artists who are more into sewing and crafts than they would be with like painting and papers and illustration.
Right.
So they are really open to a lot of different kinds of art and creativity. So yeah, Art Biz Jam is just a wonderful place to go. And some of my dearest friends I've met at Art Biz Jam, like Debbie.
Agree. Incredible people, loving, giving, supportive, encouraging. So yeah, check it out. I cannot thank you enough, Beth, for being here today. I mean, it's been a great time. I hope everyone's learned stuff that's been on the live today, and then those who watch the recording. And so God bless everyone. I thank you so much for being here. And thank you, Beth, for taking time. And thank you for everyone who came live with us and stayed. You all have gifts and talents to share. And so I pray that somewhere in here you found some motivation to maybe take that to a different step and a different place. So thank you so much for everyone. I appreciate it. And we will see y'all later. Thank you.
Bye-bye.